The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. Sign up with the promo code SGPN. Get a $1,000 bonus credit. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Sunday morning, roughly 11:15 a.m. Eastern Time on April 13th. I'm your host, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the preview of the two upcoming ATP events, 500 events actually, in Barcelona and in Munich. Before we get into that, though, do want to briefly explain why I'm doing the episode so early. Truth is, I am very, very busy later, so unfortunately I was not going to be able to record later, so I have to go early for the show. Because of that, I'm pretty limited with outright odds. I did find one book in Europe that actually had some lines on the outrights for both books. So once again, I'm going to, or for both events, I mean. So I am going to go through the outrights from what I have available. However, the odds are currently available in fractions, so I am going to break down the odds and fractions, but for the guys I actually did take in both events, I converted it to regular American odds, so I just wanted to mention that. So if I end up mentioning a guy is like 23-4, that's the reason why. It's because there's only one book that I saw listed that had outrights already posted, but it's in Europe, so I'm going to have to read it from that display. Anyway, before we get into any of the actual breakdown of the two events taking place next week, quick recap of what happened in the last episode for the final in Monte Carlo. Unfortunately, not a good episode for us, as we did lose the lock and dog. For the lock, went for a prop, took Alcaraz under 1.5 aces, a minus 150. Didn't get there. Alcaraz had a couple of really well-placed serves, and unfortunately did end up beating us in the first two sets. Picked up a loss there. For the dog, we had Alcaraz first set spread, minus 2.5 at plus 125. As he lost the first set outright, the annoying part was that Alcaraz won the second set and the third set while covering the spread, but did not cover the first set with the spread. So, unfortunately, we gambled on Musetti struggling again early in matches. He did not. Musetti actually played, in my opinion, his best first set of the entire event, and then Alcaraz woke up and destroyed him. So either way, picked up a loss there for the lock and dog picks. Now, for the actual once again, match itself, Alcaraz did win the title, so congratulations to him. Of course, he was the pre-tournament favorite at around, I think it was plus 150, and he got the job done as he was able to survive a couple of scares, but he ended up getting the job done by the end of it all, so good for him. Now, for the match breakdown and the path itself, Alcaraz did win, but did drop at least one set in a lot of matches recently, even dating back to Miami. So if you include the run in Monte Carlo, he did drop a set in 3 of the 5 matches. If you include Miami and you include Indian Wells, he dropped a set, at least one set, in 5 of his last 7. So Alcaraz has been vulnerable, but he has been able to get by, and that's definitely scary for other guys on tour, because Alcaraz has not really found, in my opinion, his full form yet, and it does seem like even though he is maybe, I'd say 70% there, he still won Monte Carlo, one of the biggest clay tournaments of the entire calendar slate. So definitely a good showing by Alcaraz to win, despite not being at his best for the entirety of the run. And we'll see if he can keep rolling there for the French Open, and more importantly for this episode, for Barcelona starting next week. Now, for the match itself, Alcaraz got off to a slow start. We saw Musetti jump him early. Then Musetti simply put, ran out of gas. Alcaraz, it felt like a kind of a carbon copy of the match that we saw against Cerundolo, where Alcaraz struggled early, then he went God mode in the second set, 1-6-1, and then Musetti got hurt, actually. Musetti ended up hurting. It was either his hamstring, his thigh, or his knee, but his movement was non-existent, and you could tell halfway through the third set it was going to be 6-0, because Musetti couldn't move, and he didn't want to retire because it was the final of a 1,000 event, so he ended up taking the loss, and Alcaraz ended up winning. Alcaraz, though, did not celebrate really in Musetti's face. He ended up just having a solid smile, ended up shaking Musetti's hand. Then he went to, of course, his corner, and he ended up into his coach's box, and he celebrated. But you could tell that Alcaraz felt bad for Musetti, because it definitely hurts to win a title that way. He'll take the win, but Musetti, you could tell, was definitely injured. He only continued because of the actual environment, and you saw Alcaraz show some, I'd say, some slight pause or some slight, I'd say, willingness to limit the extent of his celebration. Didn't fall down to the court, that kind of stuff. He was able to win with a pretty, I'd say, conservative celebration, knowing that Musetti was hurt on the other end. So definitely some solid sportsmanship from Alcaraz from that perspective. But for the match itself, really not much to break down. Musetti looked good early. Alcaraz was able to respond, and he took over the second set, and Musetti ran out of gas. I did question how often he'd be able to drop the first set and win matches in the event. I should have phrase it differently. I should have said how often he would have been able to survive against elite competition going to a deciding set, and his body just couldn't handle it. So his body ended up falling apart, and he ended up seeing Alcaraz win in 3 sets. Fun final that unfortunately was kind of underwhelming in terms of the conclusion because Musetti just could not go down swinging. He had nothing left in the tank, and Alcaraz was able to capitalize on the injured opponent as he won 6-0 in the final set. So overall, the takeaways for the event, it was definitely fun. I believe Musetti is now number 11 in the world, so good run for him. Definitely an elite clay player. We have to wonder if we're going to see him in the upcoming events this week, so I'll get into that in a second. But Musetti might be a last-second, I'd say, withdrawal from the actual card because of the injury he suffered in the final in Monte Carlo, so we'll see what happens, but pretty fun event. Not really much of a surprise who won. I mean, we didn't take Alcaraz because we wanted to go for a bit more plus money, but Alcaraz, we kind of dared to get the job done. He did. Didn't look great in the process the entire way through, but he had enough big moments and enough overall sets of brilliance to get the job done in the grand scheme of things. So nice job by Alcaraz, and we'll see if he looks sharp in Barcelona the upcoming week. Now, for the actual, once again, reminder, on the podcast, you can show support for the show by helping the show grow. Don't forget to check out the podcast on YouTube or on the SGPN Twitter live stream. So do it on both places at the same time. It's also available, of course, in YouTube video format after the live stream. You can also check the podcast out audio only on Spotify and Apple. So don't forget to leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Plus, a reminder that you can also check out the merch store for the SGPN website because we do have a lot of great Tennis Game Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, different colors, high quality, very affordable. Recommend getting yourself something there. And once again, for the actual SGPN reminder of the week, we have a great promo going on because if you do want to find every podcast and pick from the network in a very easy and uniform location, check out the SGPN app, completely free on the app stores. But once again, if you want to get all the podcasts in a very easy and I'd say organized location, don't forget to check out the SGPN app on the app stores, which is completely free. Anyway, moving on into the preview of the 2 ATP events for the upcoming week. We have Barcelona and Munich. Both of them are 500 events. Should be a decent field, but we have to wonder about fatigue for a couple of guys who might end up dropping out. We'll see. I'm assuming Musetti will not be playing here, but Musetti right now is listed in terms of betting odds on DraftKings, so we'll see if he ends up playing. I personally doubt it, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, we're going to do Munich first because both tournaments do start tomorrow, and Munich does start first on the actual schedule. So for Munich, you have the recent winners being pretty repetitive, I'll put it that way. So Struff beat Fritz in the final last year. I believe that was Struff's first ever ATP title. You saw Rune beat Dzanchop, then he beat Dzanchop again the year prior. Dzanchop got hurt, actually, had to quit in the middle of the first set. And you saw Basilashvili beat Struff in the final a couple years ago. So once again, a lot of the same names repeating itself. Struff in 2 of the last 4 finals, and Rune in 2 of the last 3 finals. So we'll see what happens, but we should get a pretty decent tournament based on the names listed for the actual event. So for the Munich event, of the favorites here, you have Zverev, who's around plus 290. You have Shelton at 23-4. You have Cerundolo at 25-4. You have Felix at around plus 850. You have Humbert at 9-1. Mensik at 10-1. Chapo at 11-1. Monfils at 12-1. Leshka at 13-1. Greek Sport 18-1. Navone at 18-1. Bergs at 18-1. Goffin at 22-1. Kaboli at 22-1, who won a title a couple weeks ago. You have Jari 22-1. Kekmanovic 22-1. Morozin 22-1. Batista Agut at 27-1, and Darderi at 27-1. I can name more guys. I'm not going to, though. I feel like one of those guys will end up winning the event. So for the actual path of everyone involved, starting off with the favorite, Zverev, who's been really bad since the Aussie Open. He actually is now, I believe, ranked 3rd in the world because Alcaraz is now number 2 in the world after winning Monte Carlo. But Zverev's path is honestly not that great. Has Muller in the first round, who he should beat, but Muller we saw give Medvedev a run for his money in Monte Carlo. He also won a hardcore title this year. Made a couple finals. He's been in good form this season, and Zverev has not really played that much recently. We saw him lose in Monte Carlo early in that tournament. So I do question how sharp he's going to look here. Yes, it is his home country, and yes, he should look good here, but Should's the key word because he's been awful since the Aussie Open. He lost to Berrettini in his first match in Monte Carlo, have not been impressed by his form. Nobody has, and at plus 290, I don't want to take him. But he has Mueller in the first round, then probably Altmaier, who looked pretty good in Monte Carlo. That could be an interesting matchup. Then you might have either Griekspoor, who he's lost to this year, or maybe Mensik, who I don't think is the greatest on clay. He's fine, but the point is that it's not the easiest path for a plus 290 favorite who's been in really bad form over the last couple of months. So with that being the case, I'm going to pass on Zverev, not interested. Think there are better options for, once again, better prices. You have Shelton as the second favorite at 23-4. I don't know how you can bet Shelton to win a clay event. I know his draw is manageable, but he's not a great clay guy. So pass. I feel like those odds are insane. I understand that he does have a pretty decent draw, but when you're looking at the overall form on clay in his career, he should not be the second favorite in a pretty stacked field, in my opinion, to win the event. So I'll pass on Shelton as well. Then you get to the interesting options. You have Cerundolo as the third option, and I think this one could be intriguing. Now, he has Struff in the first round, who's defending champion. Struff, though, has been awful for the last basically year at this point, and Cerundolo is a massive favorite in the match. I think he's like minus 400, so Cerundolo should win. You'd have probably Caboli in the second round, which I think Cerundolo would be favored in, and I think that he's the better clay player than Caboli. He's in the same quarter, though, as Felix, which can be interesting, but Felix we saw lose in his first match, I believe, in Monte Carlo to Altmaier, and he was a break in both sets. So I'm not really sold on Felix's current form. Navone could beat Felix in the first round. That wouldn't shock me. But I think that Cerundolo has a pretty decent overall draw. You're looking at him being in the bottom half of the draw, which is the top seed of Shelton, who I think might lose early. So I like how Cerundolo's played. I think he's been playing good tennis. He gave Alcaraz a run for his money early on in that match in Monte Carlo. Did eventually get buried in the last two sets, but Alcaraz went God mode. Cerundolo, though, has been, objectively speaking, solid in terms of form over the last couple weeks. I'll take him at plus 625. Think it's a pretty good half of the draw. Think his quarter is not as bad as people might expect or anticipate based on looking at the names. But I think that the overall form of Struff, for example, is definitely down, and that should help Cerundolo get into a potential quarterfinal match. You're looking at Caboli, who's fine. I think that he was able to showcase his skills in Bucharest, but I see Cerundolo beating him here, and I do think that Navone can maybe beat Felix in the first round matchup, but I think that there's a pretty decent path for Cerundolo, and based on the form, I like the actual price. I'll take him at 625. Now, this is going to open up a pretty, I'd say, difficult discussion about a lot of other guys. Felix is at 850. I can't take him. I think Navone is a tough matchup in the first round. I didn't like how he played in Monte Carlo, who's an Altmaier in straight sets. So I'll pass on Felix, not interested for that price. Humbert's at 9-1, who's been awful on clay lately. So I can't really take him. I think Altmaier is once again a guy that can give potentially Zverev some problems in the second round. Maybe you'll see Moore give Zverev some problems in the first round. So I'm going to pass on Zverev. I'm going to pass on Shelton. I'm going to pass on Felix. Humbert, he's been really bad on clay lately, even in UTS events. We saw him lose early on in Monte Carlo. Not really sold on how he's playing. Lost to Pyron in 3 sets there. Has Jari in the first round. Should be a fun matchup. Jari's been bad too, but I'm really not a big fan of how Humbert's played recently, and I don't think he's as good on clay as people expect him to be for a French player. So I'm going to go with somebody else. I'll pass on Humbert there at 9-1. Mensik has not played since winning the 1,000 title in Miami, so he's not played on clay in a while. And I do question how sharp he's going to look, not to mention the fact I don't think he's the greatest clay player in the world to begin with. So I'm going to pass on Mensik as well. When he has not played in basically 2 weeks, and he's not played a clay match in a long time, I'm not interested in his actual outrights here. Think it is a pretty tough spot. Moving on, though, to the next one. You're looking at Chapo at 11-1. I can't really take him. Him and Monfils are neck and neck in terms of pricing, as he's at 11-1 and Monfils at 12-1. They're both basically pick 'em in their first round match, as I think that Chapo is like minus 120 and Monfils like plus 105, give or take. But the point is we're looking at what should be a toss-up match in the first round. Not interested. Think there are better options elsewhere. Then you have Lehecka at 13-1. Now, Lehecka, we saw lose in 3 sets in what was a pretty entertaining match in Monte Carlo that kind of came down to the wire. But Lehecka eventually did lose in that match in Monte Carlo to Musetti. That loss aged pretty well because Musetti made the final. So I'm not really going to roast Lehecka too much for that one. Did beat Korda in straight sets in the first round. Does have Darderi in his first-round match. Darderi's fresh off the title in Marrakech, but I do think that Lehecka is the better player. I think he should be favored in this one. He's minus 175 or so. I think the path is not that bad if he ends up getting past a pretty difficult first-round opponent, I'll admit, in Darderi, but his overall path is Kecmanovic or Giron in the second round. Think that Lehecka would be favored in that one. You have Shelton in the bottom section of the quarter, who I'm not scared of at all. So I'm going to go with Lehecka here for the odds. I think that is a pretty decent price at 13-1. I think there's upside there if he stays healthy, and I think he's pretty underrated on clay. We saw him make a deep run. I forgot what event it was. Was it Madrid? I'm trying to remember, but there was an event where he ended up beating Nadal and he made the semis, then he got injured. I forgot what event it was, but he has made a deep run in a clay I should say, high-profile tournament before. I think that his form right now is not that bad. Losing to Musetti aged well. I think 13-1 is a good price. And for the long shot I'll go with, it's actually his opponent in the first round. Give me Darderi at 27-1. As you can tell from the actual outrights that I was going through, I really didn't like many guys. I feel like there was not a good blend of good players with good draws. And because of that, I had to skip a lot of the top-tier guys based on odds. Just didn't like the pricing or the form, and because of that, I am going to branch out a bit more. The guys that I think can pull off a Cinderella run. Darderi might lose to Lehecka, but same reason I'm taking Lehecka. I think the draw in that bottom half is very favorable. I do think that the winner of that first-round match should beat Giron or Kecmanovic in the second round, and Shelton doesn't scare me at all. So if you want to give me a good path to maybe even making it to the quarters and beyond, you'd have a potentially Cerundolo, maybe Felix in there for the semis, but I like the idea of fading the top half because you have Zverev in there, you have Griekspoor, you have Mensik, you have Humbert, you have Chapo, Monfils, decent amount of quality players in the top half of the draw. I'll skip them. Give me the automatic outright elimination in the first round, though. I'll go with Darderi at 27-1. So once again, my 3 outright picks for Munich. I'm not going to be too, once again, bold with my plays. I'm not going to be too, I should say, I don't want to really have that much liability for the outrights. I really was not that big of a fan of the draw. Anybody that I was tempted by really did not have the draw or the form that I wanted, so I ended up branching out a bit more. Going to tread lightly in the event here, but I am going to go with Cerundolo at 625. I'll go with Lehecka at 13-1. I am going to go with his opponent in the first round as well. Give me Darderi at 27-1. Before we get into the actual outrights here for Barcelona, quick reminder, they're brought to you by EdgeBoost. If you ever tried to get some money from your bank account at 2 a.m. for maybe a shot at the tables, but you've hit your ATM limit, then you will not be able to do so. But that will not happen with EdgeBoost because you can always access your money because it is the first ever bank account built for bettors. They give you fast, reliable access to your funds, make it easier to move money wherever you want to and whenever you want to. Without the delays that come with traditional banks. You can also get some cash rewards every time you deposit into a qualified gambling account. Cash rewards up to 0.5%. All this for no usage fees and no minimum balance. You could also use the responsible gambling tools to help manage your bankroll and make informed decisions. Reminder though, when you head to edgeboost.bet, use the promo code SGPN, edgeboost.bet promo code SGPN. Sign up for your EdgeBoost card today. We're also brought to you by MyBookie, because MyBookie.ag is the place to bet every sport, including the Masters. If you want to bet on the final round, if you want to go for Rory or Bryson, you can do so. The point is you can have a lot of fun betting the Masters, even live betting on the platform. They have props in every game as well. You have customers from a ton of locations because MyBookie is acceptable in a ton of locations. You can also get lightning fast payouts and use easy deposits with crypto. Head to MyBookie.ag, though, promo code SGPN for 100% odds match up to $1,000. MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished breaking down the outrights in Munich. Now it's time to move on into Barcelona. For the recent winners, you've seen Tsitsipas lose in the final a lot. In fact, he's lost in the final, I believe, in 3 straight years. I want to just confirm that, but I believe that is correct. So we've seen him be a constant bridesmaid here in the past. We'll see how Tsitsipas does in this one, following that pretty tough loss to Musetti. But Tsitsipas, to go through the actual form, I actually forgot a year, so my bad there. Alcaraz did beat Carreño Busta in one of the events. So Alcaraz has been the 2-time champion. He's won 2 of the last 3, but the point is he has been playing good tennis, and we just saw him win in Monte Carlo. He will definitely be a tough guy to beat for the event. But for the recent winners, I adjusted it. You have Ruud beating Tsitsipas last year, Alcaraz beating Tsitsipas the year prior. Alcaraz did beat Busta the year before that, and you ended up seeing Nadal win the 12th title here in Barcelona as he beat Tsitsipas in 3 sets back in 2021. So the point is, you've seen Tsitsipas lose in the final 3 of the last 4 years. We'll see how he does in this one after kind of underachieving in Monte Carlo. Now, for the outright actual odds here for the event, for this one, you have Alcaraz as the minus 118 favorite. You have Ruud at plus 750. You have Tsitsipas at 9-1. You have de Minaur at 11-1. You have Rublev at 11-1. Fees at 13-1. Fekina at 15-1 off of the semifinal matchup that he ended up losing to Alcaraz in Monte Carlo. You have Rune at 16-1, Baez at 19-1, Kashanov at 19-1, Korda 29-1, Rinaldi 29-1, Munar 32-1, Echeverry 37-1. You kind of get the point. If you want to go for nostalgia, you can get Wawrinka at 39-1. If you want to go for a bold option, you can get Tiafoe at 44-1 or Pericard at 44-1. So for the actual event, the real question is, will anybody beat Alcaraz? Because Alcaraz, we know, is a 2-time champion. He's won those in the last 3 years, and he did just win Monte Carlo despite not playing his best tennis. The problem with the event, though, there are no buys. So if you are looking for a potential rest advantage for Alcaraz, you'll not be getting it because there is no actual buy in the first round. He has a qualifier or lucky loser, which he should destroy, but the point is there is no extra time off for Alcaraz to reset and to recharge his batteries. Now, for the actual draw for Alcaraz, honestly, not the best draw for him. Qualifier, lucky loser, he should be in the first round easily. Makic or Tiafoe in the second round. I'm assuming Makic, not the easiest draw there either. He should win, though. Has de Minaur in his quarter, which can be tough. de Minaur was in great form for losing to Musetti in the semis in Monte Carlo, but I think Alcaraz should beat him anyway. So the question is, do I think anyone's going to beat Alcaraz? To be honest, no, I don't think so. So I am going to take him minus 118. Do I like it? No, but I think that I have to actually acknowledge how well Alcaraz played in the big moments of the Monte Carlo event. Even though he did drop some sets, he was really never on the brink of elimination. Besides the end of the second set against Fees, he really was going for it when he needed to, and he was able to lock down when he needed to, and he got the job done. But I think his draw is not that bad. I think that, of course, he is definitely the guy to beat. He has the home crowd advantage in Spain, and the crowd's going to be supporting him heavily in this one. He also, I think, has a pretty decent half. I think it's a pretty, once again, good draw, and I think that based on his form right now, I'll take him at minus 118. Now, the question is, am I going to go with any of the head cases, Ruud or Tsitsipas? I will not. I think Tsitsipas has an okay draw. Not that great, honestly. First of all, same half as Alcaraz, not ideal. Should beat Opelka in the first round. Should beat Korda or Rinaldi in the second round. But the point is, he might have Fees in the third round. And Fees has been playing great tennis. He almost beat Alcaraz, came closer than anybody else did in Monte Carlo. I think I would take Fees in that matchup, but Tsitsipas, I think with him being in Alcaraz's half, and I'm really never beating Alcaraz, I see it being a bad price. I'll pass it on there at 9-1. For the bottom half of the draw, though, you have Ruud, who's around 750. Now, Ruud we saw lose in that choke job against Papirin, where he had a couple match points and blew it. Has a decent draw, though. Has a lucky loser or qualifier in the first round, then Pericard probably in the second round. But he's in the same quarter as Rune and Baez. So not the greatest draw for Ruud. He's also in the same bottom half as the likes of Musetti, who should drop out. So I do think that it's a pretty decent long-term draw for Ruud. But with him having Rune and Baez in the same quarter, they have to play each other first. But still, I think it's really not worth the price. Would I take Ruud to beat Alcaraz in the event? I would not. And Ruud, we know, can lose to anybody because it's a head case. So I'll pass on the head cases. No Ruud and no Tsitsipas for me. That does open the door for a couple of options. de Minaur I'm not taking. Same reason for Tsitsipas. Based on draw, it's even worse, actually. He's in the same immediate section as Alcaraz, which I think is a really bad draw for him. Echeverry is also dangerous in the first round, so I think de Minaur's draw is definitely not favorable at all. I'll pass on him because of it, so I will not take de Minaur. Now you have Rublev at 11-1. Now, Rublev, I understand, has not been playing that great since he did win that title a couple of, I'd say a month or two ago, but I actually like his draw. Now, I said before, I think Musetti's dropping out, so that does open the door for that third quarter, which is the Rublev quarter. Has a qualifier or lucky loser in the first round, then Wawrinka or Fekina in the second round. Fekina's been playing good tennis, but Rublev is 5-0 lifetime, including a couple clay wins against Fekina, so I do think Rublev would beat him if they face off against each other, but assuming that Musetti drops out, that opens the door for a potential matchup against maybe Kashanov in the quarterfinals, or I should say the round of 16 for Rublev, which I think is pretty favorable, or maybe you're looking at Munar. Point is, with Musetti probably dropping out, that does open up opportunities for Rublev in that third quarter. Maybe if you want to go for Khachanov, you can get him at 19-1. I'm not going to take him, but I think Rublev, who I know can beat Alcaraz on clay, he did so about a year ago. I think that it's worth something for this draw and for the odds makers not adjusting to Musetti probably dropping out of the event. So I'll go with Rublev at 11-1 for my second choice. For the third choice, I am going to go with the guy in great form. In my opinion, the guy who is in the third best form in Monte Carlo. Just had a bad draw. Fees at 13-1. He was great in Monte Carlo. Now, unfortunately, he did end up choking away a couple opportunities against Alcaraz, but he looked very good, and he gave Alcaraz a harder time than anybody else did in the entire event. Fees, though, when he's on, is really, really dangerous, and the issue is consistency. That's why we've acknowledged how good he is. That's why we really don't take him that often for outrights. We had him to win the quarter at 16-1 in Monte Carlo, which was a heartbreaker because he lost to Alcaraz, but I like the actual price of 13-1. Would I pick him to beat Tsitsipas? I honestly might. I think he's been that good lately, and I do think that if he does go up against Alcaraz in the quarterfinals, or in the semis here, I think it's really not that bad. We saw Fees almost beat him in Monte Carlo. Maybe Fees can get it done in this time around if Alcaraz's battling fatigue. But for the price, he has Busta in the first round, who's been mostly a challenger guy lately, or a qualifier, so not really worried about him, even though he's been good here before, and even the crowd support will be in favor of Busta. I think Fee's in too good of a form right now to lose, and I do think he'll be able to beat Nakashima or Martinez in the second round. Tsitsipas, though, might lose to Korda or Naldi, who knows, but I think that you're looking at a pretty decent overall price for a guy in great form right now, a very dangerous player who maybe can beat Alcaraz in the rematch if they end up facing off against each other again in the next few days. Give me Fees at 13-1 as my final choice for the outright. So once again, the outright picks here for Munich and for Barcelona. For Munich, I'm going to go with Cerundolo at 625. I'll go with Leheshka at 13-1. I am going to go with Darderi at 27-1. For Barcelona, I am going to go with the outrights of Alcaraz minus 118, Rublev at 11-1, and Fees at 13-1. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual breakdown of the outrights for both events. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog, quick reminder, they're brought to you by Fantasy because you can play their underdog pick'em. For a chance to 100 times your money, you can also use the promo code SGPN to go special get first time deposit offer up to 1K in bonus cash when you sign up for a new account on Fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm because they are the home of ad back picks and props. So you could also use them for Major League Baseball. They have models on the NBA and golf. You could also use your own model if you want to build your own. Simple and easy to do so. They have 2 promo codes depending on what actual package you want. You can get the monthly subscription or the annual subscription. 25% off the monthly subscription with the promo code SGPN25. 50% off, though, for the annual subscription with the promo code SGPN50. That's Rhythm, RITHMM, promo code SGPN25 or SGPN50. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the outrights for Barcelona and Munich. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go to a matchup between Humbert and Jarry, which I kind of talked about before. Both guys are not in great form, but I'll go with the team total here. I'll go with Humbert team total over 12.5 at minus 136 as my lock. Now, Humbert, I said before, has not been playing well. Same with Jarry, but I do think Humbert has a pretty decent I'd say opportunity to go over this number in a couple of ways. First of all, same bet's available at minus 165 on DraftKings. So you're saving about 30 cents by shopping around, which I'll do every time. This is on Bet Rivers. Now, Humbert, first of all, is minus 400 to win a set. So you're assuming he's going to win a set in this one. Jarry, though, we know has been a marathon guy lately. 5 of his last 6 matches have not ended in straight sets, and his opponents have gone over this number regularly. His opponents have gone over this team total in 5 of the last 6 matches. So you're looking at Jarry, who even when he wins matches, which has been pretty rare lately, you tend to go 3 sets, and you should be expecting a breaker or a 7-5 because Jarry is a good server, not a good returner. I think you're going to end up seeing a pretty long match between them. But Humbert has also gone over this team total in each of the 2 head-to-head meetings. Now, I think you're looking at a spot where Jarry maybe wins the match outright in 3 sets. Humbert should win a set, but I think it's going to be close. We know Jarry can be involved in a bunch of marathon sets because of his good serving and his bad returning. I think Humbert, though, has a pretty decent path to get there in a couple ways. A straight sets win with a 7-5 or 7-6, a 3-set win, which is a possibility too, or even a 3-set loss. I don't see Jarry winning a set in a lopsided fashion. I think if Jarry wins a set, it should be 6-3, 6-4 minimum, maybe even a 7-5 or 7-6. But give me Humbert to once again make the match close, maybe to win it outright. But I think that for the sake of the team total, I like the price here at minus 136. Give me the team total over as my lock for the show. For the dog, I'll go with the matchup between Chapo and Monfils. Talked about that one briefly too before. Basically, a pick 'em on the book. Chapo is a slight favorite. I'll go with Monfils team total over 12.5 at even money on DraftKings. Monfils has gone over this number regularly. He has gone over this team total in 7 of his last 8 matches. So I'm going to go over this number against Morozin in the first round of Monte Carlo. Did lose to Rublev in the second match that he had there. But a reminder, he had a bunch of set points, and he ended up blowing it. So that easily could have gone to 3 sets, and he probably would have gone over this number as well. So Monfils almost went over this team total in 8 of his last 8 matches. So I do think you're looking at a spot where Monfils, even if he loses to Chapo, should be a fun match, should be close. I think there's a pretty decent path for Monfils to go over the team total based on current form. So I like the price of even money. Plus, Chapo has been in pretty bad form lately. He has been dropping some matches, and his opponents have gone over this number in 3 straight. He did have a tough match on hard court to Toronto, which is not what you want to see for Chapo. So pretty bad form lately. Think you're going to end up seeing a close matchup, but you're looking at Monfils, who has gone over this number in the head-to-head in 2 of the 3 meetings. You're looking at Monfils having a couple of close wars with Chapo, and I think with that being the case, you might end up seeing another battle between them. But I like how Monfils played. I like how Chapo has been letting his opponents go over this number regularly too. And Monfils gone over this team total in 7 of the last 8 matches. I'll go with Monfils team total over 12.5 as my dog at even money. So once again, my plays for the first round of Barcelona and Munich. For the lock, give me Humbert. Team total over 12.5 at minus 136 against Jarry. For the dog, give me Monfils team total over 12.5 against Chapo at even money. That's going to wrap it up, though. Back once again for the quarterfinals in Barcelona and in Munich later in the week. Till next time, I'm on Twitter, Reichel Radio. Good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.